Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, my name is Salman Wali. I am a student of political science. Basically, I was a student of political science. I have done my PS from Government Postgraduate College, Karaka. Recently, I just graduated in 2025, August 2025 to be exact. Sir, I have a few questions regarding the Musharraf era. Sir, I'm confused. Where should we start from? For example, should we start from 1999, the time he was appointed as army chief, even though Ali Quli Khan was the most deserving army chief, yet he was selected? What was the reason? This is also an interesting case. Or should we start from the day he basically started a coup or basically took over the government in a very dramatic style? If you look at the history of Pakistan, it is always dramatic. It is always looks like you are in a movie. Or should we say it is much more dramatic than a movie? Or should we move toward the cases where he basically detained the judges who were against him? Or should we start from the LFO? Or should we go toward the referendum in 2002? It is much more chaotic. So, sir, as a experienced person, as I am, from where should we start? For example, if a person says that talk about the Musharraf era, what would be the key instances or what would be the key moments in his era so that we could summarize such a person, even though it is impossible, yet we would try to, sir. So I would ask you, sir, the first question: how should we start Musharraf era?
Actually, every era in every country dates back to centuries old traditions. If you want me to start from 1999, I would like to take you to 1947, where the establishment was forced to surrender symbolic power, at least, to the democratically elected or constitutionally protected leadership. In 1947, the British withdrawal from South Asia actually marked the end of the civil and military bureaucratic regime that had lasted for around 90 years,
Exactly.
since 1857. Then, for 10,000, this quasi democratic system continued, survived till 1958, and then returned to the British era's dictatorial or usurped power. Usurped would be the proper word, for another decade. Then it became a decade to decade phenomena where the martial law regime that was more of democratic in nature, in the sense that the martial law regime, which ended in 1968 or 69, was followed by a regime which held very broad-based and very fair and free elections in 1970, which resulted, of course, in the dismemberment of East Pakistan. Then we come to 1977, 1947, 1857, 1947, and then 1977. 120 years afterwards, 20 or 30 years after the end of the Mughal Empire. And then, of course, we had 10 years or 11 years of martial law, which culminated in 1988 with the demise of General Muhammad Ziaul Haq. Then another decade of quasi-democracy where establishment interfered in almost every walk of political, constitutional, or social or economic life of the country. Then came Musharraf's era. What surprises me the most is that in 1954 we had a movement against the incumbent government of Khaja Nazimuddin because of Sir Zafarullah's presence in the cabinet since 1947.
And suddenly started
a movement against him. And The culmination of that era actually characterized the interest of the West, particularly, especially of the United States of America. The American government wanted our foreign minister or the prime minister or the government, the then government, to yield certain uh, places for their air strike capability, to increase their air strike capability, which and our association with, they were insisting our association with the NATO, CENTO, CETO, and etc., which we were maybe trying to resist. But then the elected government of the Khaja Nazimuddin assembly was removed, and the Pakistan's ambassador to the US, the then ambassador, then serving ambassador at the US, Muhammad Ali Bogra, he landed in Pakistan and took over as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and we succumbed to almost all the demands or the requirements that the United States of America had from us, which of course followed kind of a enactment of a constitutional order, a constitution which was gotten rid of even before it was implemented. It was imposed in 1958. And when we see June 1958, what the then president, the then army chief, commander in chief, Muhammad Ayub Khan, was in England, was in America, and his diary, which was recently published by his son, Gohar Ayub Khan, and the quotations that we can find from his book French Not Masters, he was unhappy with the way politics and economics were moving in Pakistan while sitting there in the United States. He spent these 2-3 months in the United States, and after thorough debriefing or whatever you can call it, he imposed direct military rule in the country in 1958, October 1958. October and these eras are very peculiarly interested in Pakistan's history. October, November. This time they are stretching it to December. Then you see the removal of his regime by Yahya Khan characterized Pakistan's movement back to democracy, whatever it was. But it was free and fair elections, which resulted in the realization of a legitimate demand of the East Pakistan that they wanted to get separated from.
Isn't quite ironic that a military regime conducted a free and fair election in Pakistan? That's the only election that is still considered to be free.
Actually, the decade-to-decade phenomena demanded this particular shift. I'll share with you why is it done this way. You will see it. In 1977, now be very careful while listening to this. In 1977, 2 years before the invasion of Afghanistan by the Soviet Union, Afghanistan was invaded by the Soviet Union in December 1979. December 1979. A revolution had taken place that is called the Soor Revolution of Afghanistan in April 1978, 27th April or whatever. It was both Soor Revolution and Sur Revolution. Soor, the month, and with say, and Sur means red in Pashto. It was a Red Revolution. Red Revolution meant the socialist revolution sponsored by the Soviet Union. Now what we see is that 2 years before an international phenomenon was to occur, Pakistan had a military regime headed or led by a person who was religiously motivated right from the beginning of his career.
Yes, sir. That's true.
who was very keen on Naseem Hajazi's Akhri Chatan and Shaheen and Kaab and whatnot. This jihadist army leadership in Pakistan was in place 2 years before the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan was anticipated. That means that this particular invasion was planned. Invasions don't happen all of a sudden, like in movies. They are prepared for. Even in 1977, July 1977, we must keep one thing in mind. The kind of agreement that the Saur revolutionaries, Nur Muhammad Tarakai, the first president of the revolutionary government, signed with the Soviet Union, mutual security agreement. The way we were planning to start with share with the Saudi Arabia these days, and the America with the Saudi Arabia, that whenever there is threat to this country, it will be considered a threat or an attack on this particular
Both
country.
countries.
And this actually legitimizes invasion of a country. This kind of a mutual security agreement legitimizes my invasion of your country. Afghanistan signed this accord
Yes, sir. I got it.
with the Soviet Union, and Pakistan, it is said, was about to sign this accord in July 1977 when the Bhutto regime was thrown away. This anticipated accord with the Soviet Union, which was never materialized, would have put Pakistan in a very vulnerable situation. In that case, legally, Soviet Union could invade Pakistan then in 1979,
Right, sir.
because our then government could have said to the Soviet Union that our security is under threat and please attack us from internal sources or from external sources.
External sources.
So Afghanistan signed this accord with the Soviet Union, which the details can find on the internet. Now, this accord actually legitimized the invasion of Afghanistan by the Soviet Union.
Soviet Union.
The Afghan government said to the Soviet Union under Babrak Karmal that we are under threat from Pakistan or from the United States or from internal jihadists. Therefore, please come to our rescue. And because they had signed an international, binational accord, they did come. Right?
Right, sir.
Now, 2 years before, an international event of a hallmark of the earlier 60s things also, the 58 martial law also coincides the Vietnam involvement of the United States,
Yes, sir.
which required widespread support for the American adventure in Vietnam. Now, 2 years before something internationally important was to happen, Pakistan had a military government well in place, which was religiously motivated, very fit case for jihadist movement. And when the invasion did occur, we were mentally, physically, psychologically, and religiously and internationally motivated to resist that Soviet invasion because it threatened, in the words of those days' leadership, the very essence of Pakistan's sovereignty and the Islamic principles. Because the Saur revolutionaries had roots in the October Revolution of the Soviet Union, the Russian Revolution that they call. Now, 2 years is very significant. In 2001, something is to happen. In 2001, 9/11 is to happen. Now, exactly 2 years before, in September,
In October.
9/11 happened in
Sorry.
September.
I was referring to the coup. Back
What
in
happened actually, what I say is that 11/9 became 9/11. It was 11/9. 11th,
Quite ironic, sir. Quite ironic.
11th September became, you see, October 11,
Yes, sir.
September 11.
September.
Just 1 month short of 2 years.
Yes, sir.
We had in place a moderate, enlightened, anti-extremism military regime in Pakistan.
Can we add the word so-called
No.
modernist,
Whatever you
anti?
would. But the reality was that we had well in place a regime which was mentally, physically, internationally, religiously motivated to resist jihadist or extremist or fundamentalist forces.
Yes, sir.
Now there is this conflict between the West and the fundamentalist forces.
Got it, sir.
Now this conflict, we fit in the international scenario even before the happening of that particular event. And 2 years' time is good enough to prepare the society, the economy, the country, the nation, and the state for a particular stand. So, after the invasion of Afghanistan by the NATO or by the allied forces of led by US, Pakistan was a natural ally. As in 1977, since we were religiously motivated, we were naturally supporting the Western or the US desire to defeat Soviet Union as part of क्या कहते हैं किस्त को क्या कहते हैं जैसे
Episode.
ड्रामे में episode of the Cold War. Now Musharraf era, I'm sorry I started it off a little.
No, sir. I totally got the coincidence.
Coincidences.
Yes, sir.
And I can take it to the 712 AD when Muhammad bin Qasim invaded India.
It's quite ironic and
Yeah,
it is
and
unbelievable.
I can share with you some of the dates which actually coincide, the months and etc. But that will be that will take us to Buddha's and Ashoka's days. So what happens here is that the American interests were served. Now, like you said, that what happened in 1968 or 69, that a democratically motivated military leadership was brought to the forefront. When the credibility of the establishment that we call is hitting the rock bottom, their popularity, their credibility, their say in the national affairs, because of some of their policies, the national resentment, the sentiment goes against them. Then what happens is that they give it a shift. They need to give it a shift. When they realize that our proxy or our supporter, our jihadist or our enlightened leader has lost his credibility, has lost his hold on power, like Ayub Khan had. In 1968, he was no more a popular general,
Right, sir.
president. He had slightly restored his popularity in the wake of the 1965 war against India. Now you can, there is a skirmish, there is a 6-7 days war or whatever days, 6 September to 12, I think. Whatever.
No, it was, sir, I guess 17 days war from 6
17,
September.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
17 days war, some of the credibility which he had lost in the elections with Fatima Jinnah was restored
Because of this.
because of this clash, the Operation Gibraltar, which is a long story. And we also experienced a similar episode with India in the recent months, which actually partially restored or revived the popularity of our heroes. So what happens here is that in 1968, Ayub Khan had lost once again, re-lost, we should say, his popularity or his credibility, and therefore a new face was introduced who led the country towards democratic process. And then the democratic process had started losing its credibility in 1977. And there was a very strong movement against that political government.
Right now. In the ship of
And
DNA.
that was irrelevant. What you see is that there was this movement for the imposition of Islamic laws in the country, which already existed in the constitution.
Right, sir.
Hmm?
Right, sir.
You must see. But then this movement was ostensibly very blatantly, very clearly supported by the American. Iraqi embassy was full of that weapons had been recovered then
Yes, sir.
from the Iraqi embassy, American weapons, which were sent to support the movement of the Islamic, what was it called, led by Mufti Mahmoud, Nawzada Nasrullah, etc., etc. And the government was toppled. There was no talk of, like, Muhammad bin Qasim had come to rescue that little girl, and then there is no talk of the little girl that he had come to rescue. And there is no talk of the rest of the imposition of Islamic laws after Bhutto was gotten rid of. That Tehreek was actually meant to dismantle and to bring about a military regime which was religiously motivated.
Right, sir.
I'm trying to. So, in 2001, something was to happen, and 2 years before that, we had military regime led by an enlightened and moderate and very modern uh, military leadership. Then in 2008, his credibility had started fading away.
Yes, sir.
And as a result, General Kiani emerged as our army chief. His first act was to withdraw all military officers from civilian positions.
Right, sir.
And the credibility of the army was restored for around 10 years again.
Yes, sir.
And in 2018, we were back to the era of the establishment, whether in the form of PTI or later by the alliance led by Muslim League Noon.
Yes, sir.
We are actually, in 2018, we actually went back to the state of 1958.
Right, sir.
Maybe it was called a hybrid system, or whatever system it was. Even in Ziaulak's era, there was a prime minister, his name was Mahmoud Khan Junejo. You know that. There
Yes,
were
sir.
opposition leaders, there were. Last time I was there with Khadim Hussain, and there I said, Namatullah Sahib actually reminded me that you had said that in 2028 maybe that we see a change in the policies and shift in the system. And before that, we should not expect it if we have to believe Ibn Khaldun's Asabiya or his.
Yes, sir. Musical chair.
Yeah. So that would be like you do not expect the first innings to be played on the fourth day of the test match. So if it is being done, then the match will be drawn. So the point here is, now let us see one other thing. The British government, when here in 1909, introduced Minto-Morley reforms. You read the Minto-Morley reforms, which were basic democracies of Ayub Khan, which were Baldiyati Intikhabat of Ziaul Haq, which were the hallmark of the Musharraf's Nazim system, the local government system. The local government system is good for dictatorial regimes like the British in 1909, 1919 Chelmsford Montego reform, and then we saw the 1935 Act, which was more democratic in nature.
Yes.
The 1909 reforms, Minto-Morley reforms, are, when you compare them with the local government reforms here in Pakistan, introduced by almost every, Ayub Khan introduced basic democracy.
Yes, sir. 1960s.
And then Baldiyati Intikhabat, bringing power to the grassroots level or to the doorstep of the.
Maqaman mein.
Actually, what is that? It is that the elected members have all the responsibilities and no powers. And the unelected people have all the powers and no
responsibility.
You blame your Nazim, you blame your chairman of the local council or the district council for the failure of the governance, but you do not blame the person. You say, उसने तो लगाया था, उसने तो देखे जमहूरियत दी थी. So, number one, Musharraf introduced that Nazim Nizam, which was, of course, more potent than the basic democracy of Ziaul Haq's Badiyati Intikhabat. Nazim Nizam was very powerful, which was very good in many senses,
Right, sir.
because the common man had a little say in the governance or the rulership of the district or the village council, etc., etc. But that was discontinued with the introduction of the quasi democracy that we see today. We saw between 2008 and 2018,
18.
the era is the same. Only Mere Aziz Hamwatna was not said in 2018.
Right, sir.
Mere Aziz Hamwatna is the only deletion. Otherwise, the speeches are the same, the laws are the same. Then elections were held. Jamali and Shaukat Aziz, you saw Mohammad Khan Zinejo, and earlier Noor Amin was the prime minister under Yahya Khan,
Mm-hmm.
the Bengali leader.
Yes, sir. No, no, no.
People don't mention him. And Bhutto was the deputy prime minister under Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, and the foreign minister who went actually to represent Pakistan in the United Nations, where he
Told
did
the
not,
documents.
endorsed the Poland resolution for ceasefire. So Musharraf era, and keep one other thing in mind, that whenever that era where American interests are American interests coincide with Pakistan's military regime's interests, we see economic development in capitalist model. And Shaukat Aziz's, Muhammad Aziz, the Aziz Ahmed, the finance minister of Ayub Khan, or Mahbub al-Haq, or Ghulam Isa Khan, the World Bank representatives or the IMF representatives, they become your chief finance managers
Minister.
or prime ministers even in Shaukat Aziz's case. So what happens is that we see the growth of macroeconomic indicators.
Macroeconomic indicators.
And we are told that the trickle down effect will start soon, which never starts.
Yes, sir.
Because 22 Khandans under Ayub Khan era, Mahbub al-Haq, actually the Planning Commission deputy chairman, announced in a press conference that the entire wealth of the country has been accumulated in 22 families.
Right, sir.
And that was the that is the capitalist order. And that is the Western model. So Musharraf era also witnessed economic growth on a macro level. And because it is also attributed to the Western support of our military rulership for their peculiar ends. Now, Musharraf era can be summarized in this particular. And when he lost his credibility, he could not deliver anymore. When Ziaul Haq, for instance, failed to stop the Geneva Accord in 1988, we saw the Ujri Camp incidents, and we saw his demise and the restoration of democracy from nowhere. So I would summarize Musharraf's era as a democratic era in many senses, more democratic than the quasi-democracy that we see today, and it was the introduction of an enlightened thought. At least Sufism also flourishes in such scenarios. But human rights, constitutional rights, they had not existed in 1947. We saw Barbara's and the massacres of Barbara and
Yes, sir.
other events, the removal of democratically elected government through unconstitutional means in the then NWFP. And there were many events which do not represent a democratic mindset or disposition. So it has always been the same. And Musharraf whosoever it is. Allama Iqbal had said that there is no difference between गुलामी को पहनाया जमहूरी लिबास, सुल्तानी को पहनाया sultan. There is sultan, there is badshah, there is shanshah. The West has, that was what I had advised you to see in that essay by George Bernard Shaw, The Freedom. That some people would say, I feel suffocated because there are very huge amendments in the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
But we do not realize that these suffocations belong to a class which do not belong to our class. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court should be suffocated. Why should Arif Khattak be suffocated? His powers, which he never used in my favor, have been usurped by another usurper for his purposes. So, Mir Sultan and Wazir Azam, they are the same. And in the same faces of the same coin, same sides of the same coin. So, we should not worry about that. I think.
Yes, it kind of summarizes everything. So there's the last thing. You said that the many government in the past, basically the military regime specifically, they lost their credibility, they lost their popularity at the end, right, sir? So when you look towards Ayub Khan, you basically know why he lost credibility. When you look towards what was the name of the one who took over in 1977? I forgot. For instance, Ziaul Haq, sir. He also lost credibility due to some reasons. But if you look toward this guy, the Musharraf, sir, he basically, if you say, it was bizarre that the way he lost his credibility, even though in 2006, I just believe, sir, in 2006 he was quite popular. He was well on track. But somehow, out of nowhere,
this popularity, my dear friend, also is orchestrated by the powers or the power which brings about the change.
yes, sir.
When a certain person carries out the assignments given by the boss there in the West, when you fulfill your assignment, you start demanding your dividends,
Yes, sir.
the profit, the benefit. And when your demands increase, they want to get rid of you. And they make you do something, or something happens, and that does not happen from blue sky. That something happens as a command performance. That is what I have been emphasizing. Ayub Khan was the most popular person that this country has ever had. Even he was at some stage more popular than Zulfikar Ali Bhutto,
Yes, sir.
especially in the wake of his performance in the 1965 war.
Yes, sir.
But suddenly, a group of students were stopped by the police at the Attak checkpost. The Asghar Mal or the Gordon College Rawalpindi students. Police mistreated them. Then they protested against that mistreatment. They were moving from Landi Kotal, they were taking along certain banned items. And in the Attak checkpost, they were stopped at. Then they protested against the police behavior.
Yes, sir.
And some of those students, they had blocked the Murray Road in Rawalpindi. It was a small event.
Yes, sir.
And 2 or 3 students, or one student, actually lost his life. And that incident, in the widest spectrum, if you look at it, was a very small incident. And it brought about the demise of Ayub Khan's popularity and government. So, Khalid bin Saeed has said in one of his books, Pakistan, a Contemporary Study, or whatever the title I'm forgetting, that small events have led to big changes in Pakistan's history because, and I've added in my work on this, that this small event also very obviously seems to have been motivated by the Western. They just look for chance. What you saw in Iftikhar Chaudhry's case, one fine morning there was very small news that the Chief Justice called on the President
Yes, sir.
and he has been removed
Yes,
by
sir.
the President. And then suddenly, later situations did, Pakistanis were very happy that the supremacy of the judiciary will be restored and my fundamental rights will be protected. And my teacher, Professor Azhar Zulbert, had said that they do not realize that this gentleman, during the movement of the lawyers, I asked my late mentor, Professor Azhar Zulbert, that Pakistan is heading towards a democratic and constitutional rule of law and the restoration of fundamental rights through the independence of judiciary. He said that you do not notice the word. He says not. He does not say that I am the Chief Justice of Pakistan, therefore I refuse to resign. He says that I am a Baloch, therefore I. So there is this war between the Baloch elite and the military elite of the country, supported by a segment of maybe the military process led by General Ishfaq Hussain Kiani. You understand?
Yes, sir. I'm understanding.
Now everybody knows that Ishfaq Hussain Kiani supported that movement. And Musharraf was no more as powerful as he used to be. So these small events do not happen themselves. They are magnified by international needs and compulsions. Our country is unfortunately, countries have their foreign policy in accordance with their national internal interests. Pakistan's foreign policy actually determines its internal movement or system or work. I think.
Yes, sir, that's enough. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. I think it gave us a new insight about what the whole thing is about. Today, I learned something new. It was that, like, I feel like we have been manipulated, and we are still being manipulated.
And we will continue to be manipulated.
But the thing is, that's the last question, if you don't mind, sir. How can we end this, sir? Yeah, like we have seen in the past that power used to manipulate the smaller states, right, sir? And one day those smaller states get together and stand up against such a powerful example. For example, if we say that the time does not remain the same as always. For example, if you are in power today, for example, at one time, Altaf Hussain was in power in Karachi, sir. Yes, sir, I know you might have something new, but my findings are he was indeed, even though he was supported.
Powerful because he was taking steroids from the establishment or from the international map.
From this international, but suddenly he lost lost it, and not only that, all our dictators also lost their credibility. But is there a way through which there would be no manipulation, or there would be something which we could call, sir, as a free will? Like, could there be a day where could we, as a common citizen of Pakistan, could use their will to elect a government on their own will, sir?
Not in the near future. Not in the near future. I see any change.
Yes, sir.
And the reason is very simple. It is not a struggle between an institution, a department, and the people of Pakistan. It is not a struggle between the civilian and the military regimes. It is actually a class struggle. And whenever, from my experience, what I've seen is that when the common man sends common people to the House of Commons, that is the National Assembly of Pakistan, they immediately shift to the capitalist class or the upper class. You must have noticed from the recent history.
Yes, sir.
Within 1 month, you see change in their dresses and in their behavior and the skin lotions that they use for improved appearance, they immediately move to another class. And this class struggle has always been in the favor of the powerful, the rich, the wealthy. As Thismascus had said that morality, rightness, justice are the inventions of the weak as an attempt to neutralize the strength of the strong.
Right, sir.
And what I've never seen in any international revolution, where the common man did not become a member of the upper class or the usurping class or the exploiting class after having dismantled their rule. French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Iranian revolutions, they are just class struggles. And the common man, my only advice to common man would be हिम्मत है तो ज़माने से बगावत कर ले वरना माँ बाप जहाँ कहते हैं वहाँ शादी कर ले.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Sir, I think it would be enough.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.